Be still and know that I am God.
Lead in shaping a new world order in the 21st century.
Where we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
Well, they thought it was the real deal. Kids terrified as cops ran into their school with guns drawn.
They were holding it like this, and once they'd walked in, they'd risen it, and they were... We actually thought someone was going to come in here and kill us.
Wow. It turns out it was just a drill, but parents were not warned in advance, and now many of them are outraged, understandably. Joining us now was one of those parents, Sharice Tate, and her 8th grade son, Xavier. Thanks for joining us both this morning. Xavier, tell us what happened. Did you know this was going to happen, and what was your reaction to it?
No, we didn't know. It was around second period, around 8, 9-ish, and 5 minutes into class, you heard the principal come over the intercom. She said, "We are going on hard lockdown." Around 20, 30 minutes later, we heard something by the door, and all of a sudden the door opened. There was a gun barrel sticking out. We were scared. We didn't know it was a drill. We thought there was a gunman right through that door. Turns out the police came in, and we were relieved that it was police, but they still kept the guns at us for a few seconds, and then they dropped it. He went up to his microphone near his shoulder and said, "Clear," and they moved on to the next room. It was then, around 40 minutes later, we got the okay, and we went about our day, regular day, but it wasn't really a regular day, and we were very scared.
That's unbelievable. Did the police officer with the gun in your classroom indicate that this was just a drill and everything was fine?
No, we didn't know. We still stood hunkered down even after we left. We only got the okay around when they checked every room, and it was very scary.
Oh, it's hard to believe that actually happened. Sharice, what is your response to that?
Unbelievable that they call it a drill, because it wasn't a drill. It was a drill for the police, but the kids, it was real for the kids.
We cannot continue to rely only on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we've set. We've got to have a civilian national security force that's just as powerful, just as strong, just as well funded. Many other Americans have Muslims in their families or have lived in a Muslim majority country. I know because I am one of them. But my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn. I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed.
Sight of Army helicopters and the sound of gunfire created a lot of concern this afternoon in one Houston neighborhood. This happened in southeast Houston around the old Carnegie Vanguard High School, where he received a ton of phone calls from worried neighbors wondering what was going on. Eyewitness reporter Jessica Willie is live to explain what it was. Jessica?
Yeah, Dave, it was frightening for sure, and to some at nearby Roberts Elementary, so unexpected that the school was locked down for a short time until everyone realized it was a drill.
Muslim communities have been at the forefront of innovation and education. It is important for Western countries to avoid impeding Muslim citizens from practicing religion as they see fit.
Told me don't come home because it sounded like we're in a war zone. Guns shooting and helicopters flying around over the house.
The Army, along with other agencies, had taken over the old Carnegie Vanguard High School. There were armed men in fatigues, plenty of weapons, and what many thought were real live rounds.
I felt like I was in a war zone. It just was nonstop. So I was terrified.
It turns out it was a multi-agency training drill that Gerald's wished would have come with warning.
They could have done a better job at notifying the neighborhood.
A classroom controversy in Revere. Students are being taught about different religions around the world, specifically Islam and the Muslim religion, and that has some parents pretty angry. A section of the textbook describing the beliefs of Muslims says, quote, "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah." One father immediately pulled his son out of the classroom.
no religion should be taught in school. In their paper, it says Allah is the only God. I mean, that's insulting to me. As a Christian, we don't believe in Allah. I don't believe in my son, learning about this here.
The superintendent of Revere Public Schools wrote the parents a letter explaining that it is simply part of the history and that section of the curriculum.
Today I want to talk about something, though, that is serious. Today I want to talk about a war that the mainstream media is ignoring. From Boston to Zanzibar, there's a worldwide war on Christianity. Christians are being attacked around the world, but you won't hear much about it on the evening news because the answer's not convenient.
Where we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
And Micah, these parents tell me that they have no trouble with their son learning the history about any religion. It's when the school starts teaching him the faith.
The audacity of this school to think they can sit these children down and teach them whatever religion they please. It's preposterous.
Some Manhattan Beach Middle School parents feel the school has crossed the line.
This is pretty illegal. It's illegal, basically. You can't teach religion in schools anymore, but apparently that, in this particular school at least, that's not the case.
They say they recently discovered their son's homework assignments on Islam were more about actually learning the faith than the history. One question asked him to write down teachings from the Quran.
What I saw written in these bubbles was the one true God, Allah, in one of the bubbles. And one of the other bubbles was all people must submit to Allah in another bubble. Now I turn the page over and I see the 5 pillars of Islam.
One of the 5 pillars he had to learn.
Shahada is the testimony of a faithful Muslim that Allah is the one true God.
It shouldn't be presented to them. They shouldn't be asked to know this.
They say the students should be taught the history behind religions, be it Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, etc., just not the actual faith.
Can you imagine the outcry all over this country if children were bringing home paperwork that asked them to write down John 3:16 or asked them to write down the 10 Commandments?
And if it ended with the declaration of faith, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, that's what the equivalent. I mean, part of us for our son, yeah, we'd be happy about that, but we understand we're fair.
Parents may
right,
not
we're
be.
Reasonable people. We understand that doesn't belong in the school, in a public school.
Now, this thing at the UK school, this is the Littleton Green Community School. The basic upshot of this is we will brand your 8-year-old kid a racist for life. The kids were sent home with a letter to the parents. Dear parent, as part of the national religious education curriculum, together with the multicultural community in which we live, it's a statutory requirement for primary school children to experience and learn about different cultures. The workshop at Staffordshire University will give your child this opportunity to explore other religions. Children will be looking at religious artifacts similar to those that would be on display in a museum. They will not be partaking in any religious practices. Refusal to allow your child to attend this trip will result in a racial discrimination note being attached to your child's education record, which will remain on this file throughout their school career.
Well, Florida parents are showing their frustration over a high school textbook that dedicates an entire chapter to Islam. They're protesting outside this school in Fallujah, claiming that Christianity and Judaism aren't getting the same treatment.
The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam.
Well, Tony, Kevin Wood received his ban from the high school in La Plata here today. This all stems from an assignment he objected to that his daughter received, asking her to list the benefits of Islam.
And up next on Hannity's America, public schools across America are under siege by radical Islam and infiltrating public schools all across the nation. Now the battle is reaching a boiling point out in California, where parents are taking a stand and they're fighting back. It's small town USA versus Islamic indoctrination.
I want to see a child in every public school in America who is trained as a witness for Jesus Christ.
When you send that child off to school today, you're sending them into a pagan society.
women, and the studies are showing that there's virtually no discernible difference between the church and the world. At what point is Southern Baptists going to rise up and say, enough is enough?
Whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
We've got to do something different. The schools are failing.
I would go to 6 or 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday.
You're not going to be painting, okay? You're going to be writing down whatever comes to your mind when you hear the word gay or when you hear the word lesbian.
So nothing's right or wrong
There's
in
no
this
right
either?
That's right.
They are stealing our children. But because they are leaving the body of the child with us, we don't even know it's happening.
If I had my way, government education would be brought to a halt.
Trying to fix public education is like trying to teach a pig how to dance. You get dirty and the pig gets mad.
Turning your children over to total strangers and having those strangers work on your child's mind, it's a mad idea.
Public schools have become a criminal enterprise.
Parents are willing to admit that there are these problems and yet believe that their children will somehow escape. They won't.
And it may have taken a school shooting to wake us up to see the danger, but that's a very small danger compared to all the other things that go on that can destroy our children.
A teacher is in trouble for bringing a religion into his classroom, but should he lose his job?
When we go into a public school, we have to leave God at the door. It just came to the point where I couldn't do that anymore.
Jesus said, build your house upon the rock, but the foolish man refused the words of Christ, would not build their education systems on the fear of God, on the words of Christ.
Everything exists to proclaim the glory of God. And the one place where we send our kids 7 hours a day is a place where God's name can't be mentioned. It's not indoctrination, it's insanity.
Well, they thought it was the real deal. Kids terrified as cops ran into their school.
Be still and know that I am God.
Lead in shaping a new world order, the 21st century.
Where we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
8, 9-ish, and 5 minutes in the class, you heard the principal come over the intercom. She said, we are going on hard lockdown. Around 20, 30 minutes later, we heard something by the door, and all of a sudden the door opened. There was a gun.
Understandably. Joining us now was one of those parents, Sharice Tate, and her 8th grade son, Xavier. Thanks for joining us both this morning. Xavier, tell us what happened. Did you know this was going to happen, and what was your reaction to it?
No, we didn't know. It was around second period, around...
School with guns drawn.
They were holding it like this, and once they'd walked in, they'd risen it, and they were... We actually thought someone was going to come in here and kill us.
Wow. It turns out it was just a drill, but parents were not warned in advance, and now many of them are outraged.